Okay, let's dive right into this explainer by exploring one of the most intense, universal human experiences we all share. Because, well, we've all been there, right? You hear a sudden crash in the middle of the night, or maybe you look down from a dizzying height, and instantly your entire system just goes into overdrive. But have you ever actually stopped to wonder why? Why is this incredibly negative, stressful emotion so deeply hardwired into our biology?
Seriously, think about the last time you were truly spooked. Ask yourself why our bodies actively put us through such an uncomfortable, visceral ordeal. Heavy breathing, a cold sweat, a pounding heartbeat, and those infamous butterflies in your stomach. Literally nothing about that implies fun or pleasure. Yet, this intense biological takeover is actually one of the most sophisticated survival mechanisms in the known universe. Today, we're going to unpack exactly what happens inside your brain and body when you get scared. Section 1. What is fear? To answer our central question, we first need to quickly define what exactly we're dealing with before we map out the anatomy of a scare. Now, it's super common to lump all of our stressful feelings into one bucket, but scientifically, we need to draw a very clear line in the sand. So here's the crucial point. Fear is an immediate, intense reaction to danger right in front of you. It's highly targeted. It's your response to a real threat here and now. Anxiety, on the other hand, is more of a slow-burning, generalized dread about a potential threat in the future. For this explainer, we're focusing purely on that immediate, hot-blooded reaction, fear. Section 2. The brain's alarm system. Let's map the literal microsecond journey of a scary stimulus, like mistaking a stick for a snake on a hike, as it enters your brain.
When your senses pick up a threat, that information actually takes two completely different routes through your neural circuitry. And this brilliantly illustrates why you jump back before you even realize you're safe. Visual and auditory stimuli hit the thalamus. That's your brain's processing hub. From there, sensory data takes a shortcut directly to the brain's alarm center. This happens before your mind even becomes conscious of it. Meanwhile, the second route, the high road, takes a much more circuitous path to the cortex, which logically analyzes the data. By the time your cortex realizes it's just a stick and not a deadly snake, your shortcut has already made you jump backward out of harm's way.
And that alarm center I mentioned? That's the amygdala. This little almond-shaped structure is the ultimate alarm bell, instantly setting your body into fight, flight, or freeze mode, without waiting for your conscious permission. It sits right at the center of the fear circuit. It communicates in both directions with the prefrontal cortex, the sensory cortex, and the brainstem. The amygdala doesn't care about logic. It literally only cares about keeping you alive in this exact millisecond.
What's absolutely wild here is that as the alarm is blaring, your hippocampus diligently records the event so you never make the same dangerous mistake again. Through a process called synaptic plasticity, which basically means your brain physically rewires itself based on experience, the activation of neurons actually wires your brain to remember the details surrounding the fearful situation. This is incredibly useful for survival out in the wild. But in modern humans, if this circuit becomes hypersensitized, this permanent fear response is exactly what can lead to conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder or severe phobias. Section 3. Inside the body. Now that the alarm is completely ringing in the brain, let's look at the incredible, instantaneous chain of events that happens inside the rest of your body.
Because fear isn't just in your head. It is a full system physiological takeover. We're talking about a massive clinical flood of physical changes. Your cutaneous system, for instance, triggers piloerection, which is just a fancy scientific term for the goosebumps that historically made our furry ancestors look bigger and much more impressive to predators. Your cardiac system triggers tachycardia, that pounding heart to pump blood rapidly. Your digestive system practically shuts down entirely, leading to dyspepsia, or what we casually call butterflies in the stomach, because digesting lunch is absolutely not a priority when you're just trying to survive.
Driving all of this is the chemical flood. These hormones are basically your body's ultimate survival cocktail, immediately prepping your muscles to sprint away or physically fight for your life. Epinephrine, which you probably know as adrenaline, opens up your air passages so you can hyperventilate and take in more oxygen. Norepinephrine shunts blood away from your skin, which is actually why you might turn pale, and pushes it directly into your skeletal muscles. And cortisol spikes your blood sugar to give you an immediate burst of usable energy. It's just an absolute masterclass in biological engineering.
Section 4. The evolutionary smoke detector. But why is this system so hair-trigger sensitive, often making us jump at completely harmless shadows?
I mean, if this physiological response is so metabolically expensive and uncomfortable, why does it happen so easily? Well, evolutionary psychology calls this the smoke detector principle, meaning your brain is designed to accept 1,000 false alarms because missing just one real threat is fatal. Think about it. We've all frantically fanned a smoke detector that goes off just because we burned a piece of toast. It's super annoying, but a smoke detector that fails to go off during a real house fire is deadly. Our anxiety and fear systems operate exactly the same way. False positives are simply the price we pay for survival.
We are constantly, and I mean unconsciously, doing these cost-benefit analyses of risk, weighing things like a 5% chance of physical harm against a 95% chance of looking cool to our peers. Research notes that while humans obviously strive for self-preservation, we sometimes engage in seemingly reckless behaviors. This happens when our cognitive mapping overrides the fear circuit, deciding that the immediate pleasure or social reward outweighs the perceived physiological risk. It's a constant, everyday balancing act between our primitive alarms and our higher reasoning.
This concept of evolutionary preparedness perfectly explains why it's so much easier for us to become terrified of snakes and heights than it is to fear, say, flowers or clouds. Just look at the timeline of our ancestors. The fear of heights traces all the way back to early mammals in the Mesozoic era. The fear of snakes, that's a trait we share with all simians from the Cenozoic era. And our specific human disgust and fear of mice and insects likely developed during the Paleolithic and Neolithic periods when these pests became major carriers of infectious diseases for our stored crops. We are quite literally born primed to fear the things that killed our ancestors.
And for a really surprising biological proof of this hardwiring, get this. Researchers found that rodents lacking the Stathman gene lose all fear and will literally walk right up to cats. No way, right? But it brilliantly illustrates just how genetically ingrained our species-specific defense reactions are. Without this genetic component, the fear circuitry simply doesn't trigger the avoidance learning necessary to stay alive. The mice don't freeze, they don't flee, they just walk right into danger. It goes to show that fear, fundamentally, is a guardian.
Section 5. How fear shapes behavior. Let's move to our final section and see how this biological flood of hormones actually dictates our daily risk-taking and psychological choices.
So, we don't live in the wild anymore, but our brains didn't get the memo. While these ancient instincts are great for keeping us physically safe, this extreme risk aversion can sometimes become really maladaptive, stopping us from pursuing new challenges in our modern lives. The exact same neurobiology that stops you from walking off a cliff can also cause a totally irrational fear of public speaking or failure. We're highly motivated to reduce discomfort and seek immediate safety, but in the professional and personal world, constantly avoiding risks means missing out on incredible opportunities for growth.
And here's where it gets really important. Because fear bypasses the rational cortex, manipulators, scammers, and bad faith actors can exploit our fear of the unknown to dictate our decisions and beliefs. Remember the shortcut we talked about earlier, the one that hits the amygdala before the cortex? When people leverage the fear of the unknown, external threats or perceived dangers, they tap directly into those primal, lower brain emotions. They inhibit your rational way of thinking by offering to provide the very safety your newly activated nervous system is desperately seeking. Conclusion: facing our alarms. We've tracked the anatomy of a scare from a visual stimulus straight through the amygdala and into a full-body hormonal cascade. We've seen how epinephrine and cortisol prep us for action and how evolutionary history has literally coded the fear of snakes and heights right into our DNA to keep us alive. So, the next time you feel those butterflies and a pounding heart, I want you to take a breath and ask yourself, are you actually in danger? Or is your ancient brain just trying to protect you from an opportunity to grow? By understanding the neurobiological mechanisms underlying our fear, we gain the power to pause, let the logical cortex catch up, and make a balanced decision. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and remember, always question your alarms.